Why did his eyes linger on me longer than they should have? Emily Turner stepped out onto the porch that evening, expecting nothing more than the quiet hum of cicadas and the gentle breeze of late summer. The garden was her safe place, her retreat after long days, a space where silence felt kinder than words. But tonight the silence was broken. Someone was waiting. There, half hidden in the dim light of the porch lamps, stood Daniel, her son's closest friend. His presence was unexpected and his posture uneasy. He wasn't laughing like he usually did when he came around. He wasn't carrying his usual easy smile. Instead, his hands fidgeted and those eyes lingered on her, heavy with something she could not yet name. What was he doing here, standing so still, as if he had been waiting only for me? Emily froze on the steps, her voice caught between greeting and question. Daniel looked younger than her son by only a year, but at this moment he seemed older, weighed down. He straightened when he saw her, but he did not move closer. For a few seconds neither of them spoke. The garden lights cast long shadows, painting his face with both fear and determination. Finally he whispered, "Mrs. Turner." His voice cracked in a way she had never heard before. Not casual, not playful. Something else. Emily's brow furrowed. "Daniel, it's late. Why are you here?" His chest rose and fell with a sharp breath, and she noticed the way his hands clenched at his sides, as though he was trying to keep himself from falling apart. He wasn't here for her son, that much was clear. He wasn't here with laughter or plans for the night. He was here with something heavier. Was this the moment everything was about to change? Daniel's silence unsettled her more than words could have. He took one step forward, and she could see his face clearly now. His jaw was tight, his lips pressed together as though each word had to fight its way out. "I know this isn't right," he began softly. "I know I shouldn't be here like this, but I couldn't keep it inside anymore." Emily's heart jolted. She wrapped her arms around herself, unsure whether to step back or stand her ground. His words carried a weight, a truth, and it made her pulse race faster than she wanted to admit. "Daniel," she tried to steady her voice, "whatever it is, you should talk to my son. Not me," but he shook his head quickly, eyes desperate, honest. "It's not about him. It's about you," her breath caught. She blinked at him, stunned by the sudden sharpness of his confession. The garden seemed to grow quieter, as if even the night wanted to hear what he would say next. Why did his honesty frighten me more than his silence? Emily looked away, trying to find calm in the flowers she herself had planted months ago, but the comfort wasn't there. The air felt heavy and her thoughts twisted. She knew Daniel as the boy who helped carry her groceries, the boy who fixed the garden hose without being asked, the boy who spent endless afternoons in her living room with her son. She knew him as safe, simple, familiar. Yet here he was, speaking with a voice that trembled with something dangerous. Something she had not expected. She wanted to stop him before the words spilled out completely, but her lips stayed still. Her eyes returned to him, searching, waiting. Daniel swallowed hard, his eyes not leaving hers. His entire body seemed to lean toward the truth he was carrying, and she could feel it coming. Feel the shift in the night. Feel the break of a boundary she had never thought could be crossed. What truth could he hold that would make me afraid to hear it? He took another breath, his chest rising sharply, and for a second Emily thought he might lose the courage to say it. But Daniel's expression hardened, and his voice found strength. "I came here," he said slowly, "because I can't keep pretending anymore." Her heart thundered. Pretending what? His words hung in the air, suspended, unfinished. She gripped the railing of the porch to steady herself. The garden lights flickered softly, the night wrapping them in quiet, and then Daniel stepped closer, his eyes steady, his voice trembling but clear. "Mrs. Turner," he whispered, his honesty cutting through the silence. "I have to tell you the truth. I feel something for you." What truth was he hiding that could shake me like this? The words had left Daniel's lips, and Emily stood frozen on the porch. The garden that once felt like her calm escape now pulsed with something sharp, alive, impossible to ignore. He had said it. He felt something for her. Not for her son's approval, not for friendship's sake, not out of passing confusion. For her. Emily's heart raced. She wanted to dismiss it as a slip of the tongue, a mistake he would laugh about tomorrow. But his eyes carried no joke, no hesitation. They burned with a raw honesty that pinned her in place. Could a single confession truly break years of silence inside me? Her voice came out softer than she intended. Daniel, do you realize what you're saying? You're my son's friend. This isn't... She stopped herself. She wanted to say this isn't possible, but even she didn't believe the words. Daniel shook his head firmly, cutting her off with quiet determination. I know how it sounds. I know it's wrong to say it, but it's the truth. I can't lie anymore. Emily swallowed, her throat dry. She searched for anger but found only fear. Fear of what his words were doing to her heart. For years she had walked through days of loneliness, her smile for her son the only mask she wore. After her husband's passing, she had buried herself in responsibilities, never expecting anyone to look at her again the way Daniel was looking at her now. She whispered, almost to herself, "You're too young to understand what you feel." But what if he did understand better than I wanted to believe? Daniel stepped closer, his voice steady despite the tremble in his hands. Don't say that. Don't take it away from me like it's confusion. I've tried to bury this. I've stayed quiet out of respect. For you, for him. But every time I'm here, every time you smile at me, it gets harder to keep inside. His words hit her like a wave. She took a step back, but not out of anger. Out of fear of herself, of the way her heart jumped at his confession. She wanted to tell him to stop, to go home, to forget this night. But deep inside, a part of her was listening. A part of her longed to be seen again, not as a mother or a widow, but as a woman. Daniel, she breathed, shaking her head. You don't know what you're asking. People wouldn't understand. My son, why was his honesty shaking the walls I built to protect myself? Daniel didn't let her finish. I don't care what people think, he said quickly, his voice more urgent now. I only care that you know how much you mean to me. Emily's chest tightened. He wasn't a boy in this moment. He was standing like a man who had made his choice. His words weren't careless. They were deliberate. Each syllable weighted with truth, and that truth pulled at the corners of her carefully locked heart. She shook her head again, trying to cling to reason. This can't happen. You're part of this family. My son trusts you. I know, Daniel said, his voice breaking slightly. That's why I've kept it to myself for so long. But I can't lie anymore, Mrs. Turner. Not to him, not to myself, not to you. Her hands trembled. She wrapped them tighter around herself, but nothing could still the storm rising inside. Was it wrong to feel alive after so many years of silence? Emily's mind raced with memories she didn't want to recall. Lonely nights, empty chairs, quiet dinners with only the sound of clinking forks. She had convinced herself she no longer needed warmth, no longer needed someone's hand to reach for hers. And yet, here stood Daniel, speaking words that pierced straight through the walls she had built. His confession stirred something dangerous but undeniable. She whispered again, her voice unsteady. This isn't right. You need to forget this. But Daniel only looked at her, his expression both desperate and resolute. How do I forget the one person who makes me feel whole? Her heart ached at his words. She wanted to believe this was a fleeting crush, something time would erase. But the depth in his eyes told a different story. Could I really turn away from the one soul brave enough to see me? Emily turned her face away, unable to hold his gaze any longer. Her breath shook as she tried to find the strength to end this conversation. But even in silence, she felt his presence press closer, not with force, but with longing. Then it happened. Daniel reached for her hand. It wasn't bold, it wasn't rushed. His fingers touched hers gently, with hesitation, as though asking permission. The contact sent a spark racing up her arm, startling her with its intensity. She hadn't been touched with such tenderness in years. It wasn't the hand of a boy testing boundaries. It was the hand of someone bearing his soul without words. Emily froze. The world around her stilled. The night, the garden, the lights, all of it faded into the background. All she could feel was the warmth of his touch and the truth it carried. Her lips parted, ready to protest, but no sound came. Instead, her chest heaved with emotions she had locked away for too long. "Daniel," she whispered, pulling her hand back with trembling fingers. Her eyes filled with tears she didn't want him to see, and in that very moment, as her voice cracked, her son's voice suddenly echoed from inside the house. "Mom." The back door creaked open. Emily froze. Daniel's hand fell instantly to his side, but his eyes stayed locked on hers, heavy with everything left unsaid. How could one touch undo years of silence in my heart? Emily stood frozen in the garden, her hand still tingling from Daniel's brief touch. The porch light flickered, throwing shadows across his face, but nothing could dim the raw honesty in his eyes. She had pulled her hand away, yet the memory of it clung to her skin. One simple gesture had awakened something inside her that she thought was gone forever. Her son's voice from inside the house still echoed in her mind, a sharp reminder of the dangerous line she was standing on. But Daniel didn't move. He stayed where he was, his gaze fixed on her as if waiting for her to break the silence first. Why did I feel more alive in his silence than in years of noise? Emily's chest tightened as she searched for words. She wanted to push him away, to remind him of the rules that bound them, but her voice refused to carry those words. Her throat betrayed her, her heart louder than her reason. Daniel finally spoke, his voice low but steady. "I didn't mean to scare you, I couldn't let another night pass without telling you. If you ask me to leave, I will, but I need you to know what's here." He pressed a hand over his chest, and his sincerity struck her harder than anything else. Emily's breath came shallow. She shook her head, almost pleading. "Daniel, this is wrong. You're my son's friend. You're too young, and Her words faltered. She couldn't finish because deep inside, she knew the truth wasn't so simple. What if the wrong thing was the only thing that felt right? Daniel stepped closer, but not too close. He respected her space, yet the pull between them felt undeniable. "Don't tell me it's wrong just because of what people might say. Tell me it's wrong because you feel nothing. And if that's the truth, I'll never bring it up again." Emily's lips parted, but no denial came. She wanted to say, "I feel nothing," but the lie stuck in her throat. Instead, she looked away, her eyes brimming with tears. Daniel noticed, his voice trembling as he spoke again. "You don't have to say it. I can see it. You've been carrying everything on your own. You've been strong for so long, but you don't have to be alone anymore. Not if you don't want to be." The words shook her more than she wanted to admit. Years of silence, years of emptiness, years of pretending. His voice cut through them all. Why was his truth the only thing that reached me? Emily turned her face away, ashamed of the warmth rising in her chest. "You don't understand, Daniel. Life isn't that simple. I've built my world around keeping things steady, keeping my son safe, keeping myself out of trouble. What you're asking..." She shook her head, unable to finish. Daniel's eyes softened. "I'm not asking you to throw everything away. I'm asking you to let someone see you. Not the mother, not the neighbor, not the widow. Just you." His words broke something inside her. No one had spoken to her like that in years. Not since her husband had passed, leaving a silence that never left. Her heart ached with longing, with guilt, with confusion. But above all, with the terrifying realization that she wanted to believe him. Could I allow myself to feel again? Even for one moment? The air between them grew heavy. Emily felt her pulse in her fingertips, her skin alive with the memory of his hand. She closed her eyes, trying to steady herself. "Daniel, this can't go anywhere. Even if you mean it, even if I..." She stopped abruptly, almost betraying the words she didn't want to confess. Daniel took a step closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "Even if you feel it too?" Her eyes flew open, meeting his. His honesty was unbearable. She wanted to look away, but she couldn't. His gaze held her there, her heart unraveling faster than she could stop it. Emily's lips trembled, but before she could respond, the sound of footsteps echoed faintly from inside the house. Her son was moving, unaware of the storm just outside. Panic rose in her chest. Would this fragile moment shatter before it even began? Emily pulled back suddenly, her breath shaky. "Go, Daniel, please, before he comes out again." Her voice cracked, torn between fear and longing. Daniel's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. He only nodded slowly, his eyes still locked on hers. "I'll go, But this isn't the end. Not for me. I can't unfeel this. Her chest heaved as she turned toward the door, her trembling hands reaching for the handle. She needed to put an end to this madness before it grew into something she couldn't control. Yet deep inside, she already knew the truth. Something had begun tonight. Something she could never undo. Emily opened the door to step inside. But before she could, Daniel's voice stopped her cold. "Emily," he whispered, for the first time using her name, not Mrs. Turner. Her breath caught, her hand frozen on the doorknob. The sound of her own name on his lips sent a shiver through her entire body. And in that suspended moment, torn between the safety of her home and the danger of her heart, she realized nothing would ever be the same again. Was this the beginning of something forbidden? Or the end before it even began? The door creaked as Emily stepped back inside, her son's voice still ringing in her ears. The garden's silence clung to her like a secret, heavy and unshakable. Daniel's whisper of her name had followed her in, echoing in her chest with a dangerous tenderness. She tried to steady her breath, tried to pull her mask back on, but her heart refused to calm. Her son stood in the kitchen doorway, phone in hand, looking casual, unaware of the storm that had unfolded just steps away from him. "Dinner's almost ready, Mom," he said with a grin, glancing toward the garden. "You staying, Daniel?" Emily froze. Daniel lingered in the shadows behind her, his posture stiff, his face unreadable. For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. How long could a secret stay hidden under one roof? Daniel cleared his throat, forcing a polite smile. "Maybe another time. I've got some things to take care of tonight." His words sounded steady, but his eyes betrayed him. They flicked toward Emily once, quick but unmistakable, before returning to her son. Emily's chest tightened. She prayed her son didn't notice, prayed the air between her and Daniel wasn't as charged to anyone else as it was to her. She turned away, busying herself with the table, pretending nothing had shifted, nothing had broken open. Her son shrugged, unconcerned. "Suit yourself. I'll walk you out." Daniel hesitated, then nodded. His eyes lingered one last time on Emily, the message clear. This wasn't goodbye, only a pause. Could I really pretend nothing had happened? When the door finally closed behind them, Emily pressed her hands against the counter, her breath coming fast. Her reflection in the kitchen window startled her. Eyes wide, cheeks flushed, lips trembling. She didn't look like the woman who had spent years holding everything together. She looked like someone on the edge of losing control. Her son's laugh drifted in from outside as he said his goodbyes to Daniel, casual and warm, while Emily's heart raced with guilt and longing. When her son came back in, he was still smiling. "He's a good guy, isn't he?" Emily forced herself to nod. "Yes, he is." The words nearly broke her, because now she knew Daniel wasn't just a good guy. He was someone who had awakened something she never thought she'd feel again. Why did his absence feel louder than his presence? The night dragged on painfully. Dinner passed in silence, her son chatting about school, about friends, about life, while Emily barely heard a word. Every clink of the fork, every tick of the clock, made her more aware of what she was hiding. When her son finally retreated to his room, Emily sat alone at the table, staring at the half-empty glass of water in front of her. She should have felt relief that the moment had passed, that Daniel had left, that life could return to normal. But instead, her chest ached. She missed him already. Her phone buzzed. The sound made her jump. She reached for it with trembling hands, her heart pounding as she read the message. It was from Daniel. I meant every word. Don't be afraid to feel it too. What if a single message could break all my defenses? Emily's hands shook as she set the phone down, unable to respond. Her mind screamed at her to delete it, to ignore it, to end this before it grew into something impossible. But her heart refused. She pressed her palms against her eyes, fighting tears. How could she even consider this? How could she let herself feel something so reckless, so dangerous? And yet, the loneliness she had carried for years whispered back, "Because he sees you." Sleep was impossible that night. She tossed and turned, Daniel's voice playing over and over in her head. His words, his hand, his honesty, his whisper of her name. When dawn finally broke, Emily felt more exhausted than ever. Her body weary, but her heart restless. Could I face him again and pretend nothing had happened? The next afternoon she didn't expect him to return. She thought maybe the night had scared him too, that he would stay away for a while. But as the sun dipped low, she saw him again. This time not in the garden, but at the edge of the driveway, waiting, uncertain. Her breath caught. For a moment she considered turning away, hiding behind the curtains. But her feet betrayed her. She stepped outside. Daniel's eyes met hers instantly, filled with the same storm of longing and restraint as before. He spoke first, his voice rough. "I shouldn't have texted, but I couldn't leave it like that." Emily's chest tightened. She wanted to be firm, to protect them both. But when she opened her mouth, all she could whisper was, "You shouldn't be here." He took a step closer. "Tell me to leave, and I will. But if you don't," his voice trailed, heavy with the weight of everything unspoken. What choice could I make when both paths broke me? Emily shook her head, her eyes stinging with tears. "Daniel, this can't work. My son trusts you. If he ever knew..." Her voice cracked. She couldn't even imagine the fallout, the hurt, the betrayal. Daniel's eyes softened, but his words were steady. "I know the risk, but I also know what I feel, and I think, no, I know you feel it too." Her tears spilled over. She wanted to deny it, to push him away, but the truth was already burning in her chest. He was right. She did feel it. She felt it so strongly it terrified her. Her body trembled as she whispered, "Even if I do, it doesn't mean we can." Daniel looked at her, his face torn between hope and heartbreak. He didn't argue. He simply nodded, his silence louder than any plea. Would I regret the truth more than the lie? The sound of the front door opening shattered the fragile moment. Emily's son stepped out, phone in hand, calling, "Hey, Mom, you out here?" Emily stiffened, panic surging through her. Daniel's jaw tightened, but he stayed calm, stepping back quickly, putting distance between them. "I'll see you later," Daniel said evenly, his eyes flicking to hers one last time before turning toward the street. Her son walked over, oblivious, waving at Daniel. "See you tomorrow, man." Daniel raised a hand in return, but his eyes lingered on Emily, just for a second, enough to remind her that this wasn't finished. As the evening settled again, Emily stood on the porch, her son chatting beside her about something she didn't even hear. Her eyes followed Daniel's fading figure down the street. Her heart tangled between fear and longing. She whispered to herself so softly no one else could hear, "Why do I feel more alive tonight than I have in years?" And with that whisper, she knew her life had changed forever, though she didn't yet know whether it was the beginning of something beautiful or the start of a heartbreak that would consume them all.